is Maralee Burnett, and I am back again with the messages for the week of February 24th of 2025, which will include a fantastical new moon in Pisces. So we'll break that down for every sign. I appreciate each and one of you for your support while I had my nasty cold. It's still kind of lingering, but I'm getting through it. So I am back on video this week, and I have a new hairdo. So anything to do with Venus and Aries is all about loving the self. So I decided it's time for some summer highlights. All right. So thank you again for joining. If you want to make sure you don't miss any of this fantastical content, please click on the subscribe button below, and then make sure you go out to my website, MaraleeBurnett.com. That's where I post all of my written content, new moons, full moons, all of the monthly predictions, especially for the upcoming craziness that is part of the eclipse story. And we're really in that energy right now. You're seeing it. There's crazy making stuff going on right now, right, in the world. And in our own lives, most likely, and it's starting to give you a clue of what you need to release or what will be changed dramatically as a result of this eclipse. So again, go out to my website, MaraleeBurnett.com, join me there, and then that way you'll get access to the content. Of course, it's all free, and it will even get emailed to you if you are one of my members. All right. Of course, this might be a really good time to schedule a reading with me so that we can look at the work that is kicking off literally as I'm recording this. Venus is passing over the eclipse point. So there's things that are being activated that we need to realize, what is it that we love? What are we willing to fight for? And are we going to stand up and actually fight? Because that is the energy of Aries. And Venus is, what do we love? It's money. And soon we'll have Mercury join Venus, and both are going to go retrograde. So we're in an evolving story. The most important piece of that story we're going to talk about right now, that's kicking off here on Monday. So let's take a look at Monday, February 24th. This is the AstroGold software. And here what's like a drum roll moment, which I mentioned, of course, because this officially happened last weekend, is the fact that Mars in Cancer is finally out of retrograde. And this has been with us since, the energy last December. And it's a challenge already when Mars is in an emotional water sign like Cancer. Because Mars is a warrior, right? Mars doesn't have time to deal with feelings and emotions, right? It's got a battle to win. And unfortunately, when you're fighting for something, you don't necessarily spend a lot of time focusing on people's feelings. However, when it goes retrograde, feelings do have to be paid attention to. And that's why things become more emotional, right? Because we need to tune into that energy. So now we'll have this period as Mars moves forward to do something about what we've been feeling, what women and families and what culture and history means to us, right? So this now is when we are prepared to battle. So while it will feel better physically, right, when Mars moves forward, because this is our motivation energy when it's sluggish and retrograde for a long period of time, I've heard from several Cancer energies out there that it's been exhausting. So the good news is you have the energy again. But now the question is, what are you going to do with it? Because that's the point of the retrograde. The retrograde is about review. And then as the planet starts moving forward, we have to do something with what we reviewed. We can't just say, I saw it, but I'm going to ignore it. If you do, the consequences are not worth it. But now, as Mars moves forward, it is trying to clear a path. And as usual, the energy is available to use for good and not so good. So that's where some of this battle might appear. And on Monday, as the moon in Capricorn, which tries to keep things under control, right? Especially emotionally. But it's also where we can work really hard on our feelings. And Capricorn is government energy. So there can be something that surprises us emotionally because of the connection that the moon in Capricorn has over to Uranus in Taurus, which has started, moving forward slowly since the end of January. Again, Taurus can bring financial surprises. It can bring earth type of surprises, but this is a trine, and a trine is supportive energy. So again, maybe there's some surprise announcement involving money from the government that benefits us in some way. We'll certainly find out shortly. All right. As I also mentioned, we're going to start seeing Venus. She's passed over the eclipse point, which is at 9 degrees, and will march slowly over the next week, very slowly. So all Venus topics and where Venus is sitting in your chart, those things will start to slow down. Well, remember what I mentioned about Mars doesn't like things to slow down. Mars doesn't like to be retrograde. Who's the ruler of Aries? Mars. So as much as I'd like to say we're totally done with how it's been feeling with Mars being retrograde in Cancer, I think it's going to feel like it's going to continue for some time. And so topics involving beauty, like changing your hairstyle, beautifying yourself, right? Do anything that you do, be really flexible with the outcome, because you might have to go back and redo it. And that's just going to super frustrate you. So if you are concerned about the outcome of something that involves your physical body or appearance, or beautifying your home or anything like that, then don't do it. Wait until Venus is done being retrograde, which is April 12th. Which will also see you through all of the eclipse energy and all the crazy. But if you're willing to just do things now and not be overly attached to outcomes, then it will be fine. But I have found personally, and I always feel and experience the energy that's coming up for everybody else early. I can tell you nothing will go right the first time. Even my dog chimed in there to agree on that. Okay, so even recording this video, I can't do it in just one take because things are just not going to go smoothly. We're in retrograde and eclipse energy. We have to slow down and pay attention to the details, and we may have to redo the details. So just really keep that in mind. And if you know it's going to be frustrating, it just is less frustrating as a result. So that's my best advice, is don't get bunched up in your underwear. I've been saying that for years as a manager with all of my teams. I've always said that. I'm like, don't get bunched up in your underwear, because it just is not that big of a deal, right? Pull it out. Let it go. It's just that kind of energy. If you want to get through this, you got to laugh at yourself, and you also have to hold on to faith. So we'll talk more about that as we talk about this upcoming new moon. So let's go ahead with that and move on into Tuesday. All right. And you can see, right, that not a lot is changing and shifting as far as all of our opposition energies. But what we do see on Tuesday is Saturn is moving forward, right? Saturn's getting ready to end its time in the sign of Pisces. And as it hits 20 degrees, each sign is broken up into decans or decans, however you want to prefer to pronounce that word. But it's the 30 degrees broken up in thirds, right? So as we get past 20 to 29, we're in the final phase of the Pisces work. And so that is where Saturn is now. And while it's there, it's talking with Mercury. So Saturn brings structure. It can bring restriction. This is an old leader that could be working with a younger leader. Think of an older, like, religious figure, like what's going on with the Pope and the Pope's health, right? So there could be an announcement today involving the Pope and his health. And Pisces is about health and healing. It's also about spirituality. So this might be a day like where something like that could happen. It's also a day where plans could be created, agreements, right? Because Saturn wants you to follow his rules and his plan. And Mercury has all the details and all the information, and it's how the plan will be communicated, right? And Pisces energy is also overseas, right? So all of what's happening in Europe, all of that could come up. There could be some kind of a peace agreement or some kind of a peace plan. So watch for Tuesday to be a day where we want to pay close attention to the information that's coming up on this day. So whenever you're doing tarot cards or astrology work, right, the things that go on around you, which you hear me comment about my dog all the time, are things that you want to pay attention to. So as I was talking about, right, this important announcement that could be coming up, then, a police helicopter was flying over, my house. So again, there can be something involving the law, some kind of an announcement along those lines because of the result of that just flying overhead as I'm recording this message. So of course, we'll find out. But in your personal chart, right, if you have anything around the 20 degrees of Pisces, pay attention, follow the rules, and any contracts or information or instructions, right, you want to execute them flawlessly. It'll be important, and you'll get a payoff as a result, because that's the thing about Saturn energy is if you do the work, there's definitely a benefit that comes to you. When you ignore the work, you don't like what comes to you. So something to keep in mind for Tuesday. And then as we move into Wednesday, the only activity that we're seeing that's new, of course, is created by the moon, which changes signs every 2.5 days. So that's not surprising. But today, the moon in Aquarius, we the people, innovation, is speaking in harmony with Chiron. So again, you keep kind of hearing these themes of, peace and healing, cooperation, right? So there is something emotional, right? With it being the moon, what we need to feel safe and secure is to become a part of something, right? You don't get we the people energy on your own. But Chiron can be wounds to our independence and our self-confidence, our freedom, right? But the moon comes in this group that you're a part of that is going to help create some healing. So there's a potential for that to happen on Wednesday. All right. So let's move into Thursday. So Thursday is when we have the new moon in Pisces. I am going to move this ahead so that I'm closer to when that actually happens. So we'll leave it here. So we're at 9 degrees. And so this new moon in Pisces will happen at 9 degrees, and the new moon in Aries, which is the solar eclipse next month, will also happen at 9 degrees. But that one happens exactly at 9 degrees, which I find fascinating, as I usually do with my astrology work. And that 9 degrees, of course, is this 9 year that we're in. So the 9 is about conclusions. It's ending things so that you can have a new beginning. And that is what this Pisces new moon is about, right? What is it that we need to let go of in order to let this new opportunity unfold for us? And the biggest activity with this new moon is the square from Jupiter, which is finally off of the 11 degrees. I mean, this planet has been sitting in that 11 degree mark since it moved forward and prior. And early February, right? So now we've had a whole month for Jupiter to kind of sit and gain momentum, and in its sign where it's at fall in Gemini, because this is where and why the details, so much information has been overwhelming us ever since Jupiter's slowed down, like in January, to get ready for its retrograde. The information overload has been insane, over and above anything that we've normally had to deal with. So it is this square from Jupiter, which was the original ruler of Pisces before Neptune was identified. It was seen as the ruler, so it's still a co-ruler. And that means whenever you have a new beginning and the moon and the sun are interacting with one of the planetary rulers of the sign, there's something that has to change, right? A square means we're hitting a corner. And in order for these two energies to get along, their changes must be made. And Jupiter's a teacher, right? So even though it's teaching in Gemini at a lower level than it would think it should be at this esteemed higher level, it still has something to teach us. And Gemini is of two minds, right? So there's something about our mindset, how we communicate, what we're learning, that has to change. And of course, Pisces is about faith and healing. It's artists, it's music, it's talent, but it's also the darker side of our gifts, right? It's a fine line between being gifted and being deceived about our gifts. Things can get very foggy. We can become delusional. This is where we self-medicate. So there's whatever your personal journey is, wherever you're feeling like you need more faith, you need to be more creative, you need to let your gifts shine, Jupiter's giving you a way to do it. Jupiter's giving you the information. It's trying to teach you, but you have to change. So something major has to change. We may change sides, right? So even though this is a new beginning that can be positive and, auspicious, there still is work that has to be done, like getting my bangs out of my face. So we have to do something different. And change isn't easy, as we know. It can be really painful. But when you make the changes, it will be worth it. But you have to have faith, right? You're not going to get instant gratification with this because of the fact that we're in the energy of eclipse season. Fate is in charge. That we have to get comfortable with the fact that things are going to be uncomfortable because of the fact that 2025 is a year of huge change, societal change, and revolution. And you don't go through that easily, right? You can't change everything unless you see what needs to be changed first. And so that's what we've been going through so far. Everything that's been hidden is coming out from the darkness and not afraid of the light. And in some ways that's good because we need to see what we need to see in order to deal with it. So set your intentions to break a pattern that has everything to do with the house that you have this energy in. And speaking of the ruler of Pisces, which is officially Neptune, it's still speaking fairly closely to the North Node. The North Node speaking fairly closely with Mercury. That's speaking fairly closely with Saturn, right? So we have the stellium of planets, which is 3 or more, in Pisces still, plus the sun and the moon. So the Piscean energy, faith can create miracles. And we need to remember that. It's there for us. We just have to tune in and use it. But also the energy of being deluded and being cheated And being deceived is also very strong. So it is just depending on where you want to tune into this. I recommend the tuning into the faith part of this energy, to channeling this into something positive and more creative. Of course, if you want to know more details on this article, I'll have the link to it, where I go into a bit more detail and gives you the written breakdown by sign as well. But I am going to spend the next few minutes giving you some idea of where the new beginning can happen for you. But I also want you to pay attention to where you have Jupiter, because that's going to give you the indication of what you need to change in order for this new opportunity to show up for you, right? So, as usual, I base this on whole sign houses from a chart perspective, just because that makes it easier to give you a general prediction and forecast for what may happen. But of course, your chart is different. I use Placidus, and that means that this may not directly apply to you, but this at least gives you some idea. But again, if you want to book a session with me, then we can find out for sure where this is happening and what other of your natal planets are being impacted at this time. And I definitely encourage you to get a closer look at what is coming with this eclipse energy, especially because Venus has already started the work. All right, Aries, when you have a new moon that happens in your 12th house, then the new beginning is not necessarily something you can see or touch or taste, right? These are things that are hidden. This can be work on your subconscious mind. This can be work on your beliefs. And for some, it can be work related, because the 12th house does rule large organizations and institutions, places where you can get a little bit lost, right? Because they're so big. Like working for the government, right? That's a big institution. So what do you need to change in order for your new beginning to happen? Well, this Gemini energy, of course, for Aries is your 3rd house. So again, it can be location. It could be something about your community, and it could mean that because of a job change, you now have to go back to school. Just an example of what that could mean for you. All right. And then we have Taurus. And Taurus, this for you will happen in your 11th house. So the 11th house is a new beginning that involves your friend groups. You can make new friends. You can set intentions for making new friends. You could set intentions for making a new network. You could become a part of a network. You could do things with the internet. So wherever your focus lies, and of course, Taurus is money and finances. So this could be a business that you set up that does make money over the internet. I bring up money because of the fact that Jupiter's in your 2nd house of the money you make. So there are some changes to how you make money that you need to implement with the help of this new moon. As we move into Gemini, this is happening for you in your 10th house of career. So there's a new opportunity as far as your career goes. It could have something to do with secrets, right? Maybe uncovering secrets. And there's something about it that changes, or you have to change in order to adapt to the changes that are coming in your workplace because of Jupiter being in your 1st house. So when Jupiter travels through your 1st house, this is a time of expansion for you. Now you have to be careful your physical body doesn't expand during this time, that instead you personally grow, right, from the inside instead of from the outside. It's just a thing that happens. So you just want to be aware of it. And if you're like, dang, what is happening to me? And you're like, okay, this explains a lot. Good news is Jupiter will move out by the summer as it moves into the sign of Cancer. So I'm sorry, Cancers, but you'll want to be very active during the summer because you're going to have Jupiter there, but it also is there for the next year. So choose to do something to grow and expand. as you do that, then you're able to adapt to these new changes that are coming to your career, Geminis. All right, then speaking of Cancer, this, also speaking of growth and expansion, happens in your ninth house, which is ruled by Jupiter. And so this is energy that is in a trine with you, because this creates 120 degrees back to Pisces. You're both water signs. So you feel good in this element. This new opportunity does help you grow. Maybe you have spiritual work that you do, and you may be expanding what you do as a result of that. And because Jupiter's in your 12th house, which does also have to do with spirituality, there is something about the way you've been doing the work that does need to change. Maybe you need to create a course in order to share your work with more people, for instance. All right. Next, we have Leo. Leo, this happens in your 8th house, which is all about rebirth, transformation. It's also about power, and it's money that comes to you from other resources. So investments, inheritances, taxes, maybe tax refunds could be coming in at this time. But if you're tired of feeling stuck, then this is the energy of, big, complete change that can happen for you. And it might happen as a result of a friend, because of that Gemini energy being in your 11th house, which is your friend group. So a mentor may offer you a change in position, which increases your power, for instance. Just one of many ways you can consider this. All right, Virgos, this is your 7th house, because Pisces opposes you, right? So this is your 7th house of serious relationships. It's business partners, marriages, contracts, business contracts, anything to do with the law. So there is a potential new beginning there. But that new beginning, again, happens because of something that you change. So we look at Jupiter for you, and it is about maybe making a big change in your career, right? Jupiter in Gemini from a career perspective is, a pretty big blessing, because it makes you very talkative and very convincing and a teacher, right? So there's something, though, about your career and your relationships that needs to go through some kind of a change. In order to create this new partnership, you might have to change something in the way that you do the work that you do. In Libra, this for you happens in your 6th house of the work that you do. So this is also your health. It can be anything that you do on a day-to-day basis. It could have something to do with your pets, right? So where do you want more spirituality in your day-to-day life, more artistry? What is it that you want to feel more connected to as a part of the work that you do, for instance? So in order to make this change, you might consider going back to school, because of the fact that Jupiter's in your 9th house, which can rule higher education. It also could be a mentor or a leader of some kind that inspires you to make a change. And maybe it's a change in your health, right? So somebody important is coming along as a result of this new opportunity that is going to help guide you on the changes that you need to make. All right, then we have Scorpio. Scorpio, this energy for you is in your 5th house. Now, Scorpio is also a sign that's been ruled by Mars. Currently, its ruler is Pluto, planet or non-planet, still an energy that you align with. And in the 5th house, these are things that speak to our heart. It can be romantic in nature, can have something to do with children, all the things that we love, our hobbies. So it's a good time to kick off a new hobby, for instance. And you might be considering investors in whatever this is that you want to kick off, because of the fact that Jupiter is in your 8th house, which is the Scorpio house. So you've been having, this teacher, leader, influencer in the energy of rebirth and transformation. So there is something that speaks to your heart that you can start at this time that really feels like you're starting fresh and new. Like this is a Phoenix rising moment for you, Scorpios. And again, a water sign, so energy that you're very comfortable with during this new moon. Next, we have Sagittarius. In Sagittarius, this happens in your fourth house. And the fourth house rules home, family, ancestry, your ancestors, your physical foundations, your house's foundation, right? This is a new beginning as far as family goes. Now, the fifth house rules your children, but the fourth house rules being a mother. So it's here where children can be created. Now, that may cause a little conflict with your relationships because you have Jupiter in your seventh house in the sign of Gemini, which opposes you. So there can be some conflict about the topic of children and motherhood, or you could be in conflict with your own mother, right? So remember, Jupiter is a wise teacher, so listen to it to help you as far as resolving whatever this conflict is. And especially, obviously, if there's conflicts with your marriage partner, it's just time to make sure you have ensured the same values. And if you're not on the same page, you need to do some work to get on the same page. Then we have Capricorn. And Capricorns, for you, this happens in your third house. And the third house is about communicating. It can be transportation. If you don't have to, I wouldn't recommend setting your intentions on a new vehicle at this time. It might be better to set your intentions on doing something more creative in your community. It also can be communicating with your siblings in some important way, or maybe spending more time or visiting a sibling. Now, this Jupiter energy that maybe is trying to influence any conflict that you have with siblings, right, is suggesting that you might need to change your mind about something, and you might need to change the way that you communicate with them. You might have to look at how much time and attention you're spending on at work, and you never have time for anybody else because all you ever do is work. So your extended family member, a mentor of some kind, may be reaching out to you to say, hey, what you're doing isn't healthy, whether it's too much work or your physical activities that are unhealthy. This could be like intervention kind of energy for some people. All right. Next, we have Aquarius. And Aquarius, this is happening in your second house of the money that you make. So there's a new opportunity. Maybe that opportunity is overseas. Maybe that opportunity involves art or music in some way. But in order to do this thing, you've got Jupiter over there, which is harmonious to Aquarius energy because it's in a fellow air sign. But this change that you want to make means, letting go potentially of something that you really love. It could require you to move away from your children, for instance, or let go of a relationship that no longer serves you. All right. And last but never least, and the most important this time, right, is you Pisces, because of the fact that this new moon is happening in your sign. So every year, right, we of course get a new moon in our sign. Sometimes we get two. And that invites in the energy of a fresh new start, right? So if you've been feeling like, I'm just done with myself, right? I'm done living this way, being this way, thinking this way, being detached from reality, not being aligned with faith, whatever the thing is for you. Well, Jupiter squaring you is saying, this is about really changing who you are at a core place, right? Because you have Jupiter in your fourth house, which is home and family. And the core of who you are, what you need to feel safe and secure. Well, your sense of security, it's not working anymore. It could be your attachment to something that isn't healthy has to be let go of at this time. So you'll feel this more than others, especially you you early degree Pisces in that, 0 to 9, but the closer to 9 you are, the more you are going to feel this energy of needing to make a big change in yourself, for yourself, making yourself a priority, quitting being such a people pleaser, stop not speaking up for yourself, right? There's something pretty dramatic that you are going to feel inspired to change as a result of this new moon. All right. That is the rundown of all of that energy. So we are going to move along to Friday. And you're going to see nothing big changing, right? Except that as the moon moves on, remember all that stellium of energy in Pisces. Well, now the moon that's been, refreshed, reborn with the help of the sun, is immediately surrounded by others to take the message of what's needed now and is immediately handing it out. I always feel like the moon, especially with Mercury, is a messenger, right? It moves around the fastest and the most and can share energy the fastest with other planets, with us, obviously, and how it shares energy changes. So there's a message of healing and faith, and these other planets are getting the instructions on what they need to do. And trust me, it has everything to do with the upcoming eclipse, because the North Node, the eclipse is occurring, the full moon lunar eclipse is exact. That one we're going to see, and especially in the US and on the Western states, wherever you see an eclipse, some kind of emotional closure is going to impact us as a collective. The solar eclipse, though, this North Node, the work of the North Node is in Pisces, but the eclipse happens in Aries. So these endings and new beginnings are intertwined and faded. Things have to be let go of. Things have to be dissolved. And so there's something about, again, that work as we get to Friday, even though the light isn't on the moon yet, it's like in secret, right? It's still in the dark, and it's whispering to these other planets and saying, here's what's coming. Here's what you need to get ready for. I know. It's fascinating. All right, so that is the biggest thing on Friday. And as the moon sits here, it also is like inspired through the connection that it makes to Uranus. So there is a lot of planets being activated with the moon's help, as it's just been blessed, by the sun and cleansed and new. So this, again, could be a really interesting day on Friday. So pay attention to the messages, to the downloads, and pay super close attention to your dreams. Journal them so that you remember them, because something that comes through will be important and part of your eclipse work that is coming up. And as we move into Saturday, here we go. This is when Mercury will be speaking exactly in harmony with the North Node, also closely with Neptune, right? So this is when we can be creative in a positive way, and this is when big fat lies can be spewed. So be discerning of the information that is coming your way on this day. And again, channel it somewhere positive, because Mercury here in Pisces is opposing, of course, the South Node in Virgo, which Mercury is the ruler of Virgo. So this opposition between, focus and dreaminess, right? It's like, I need to pay attention to all the details, and I need to let things go. That the Pisces energy, right, is about letting things go, letting go of the control. And that Virgo, of course, is all the control. So there's this battle between, facts and lies. And where does the truth lie? Well, guess what? The truth lies somewhere in the middle. As usual, in all the things that we are going through right now, the truth lies somewhere in the middle. So I don't ever feel like you have to take sides and say, I'm always this way. If you're the kind of person who says, I am this person and rigidly believe it, never going to change my mind, you might need to take a look at that, because nothing is black and white. Nothing in life is black and white. Period. So if you think like that, you're too rigid in your thinking. And this is what the South Node in Virgo is going to pry out of you over the next year and a half, is that way of thinking and being. You cannot be that rigid and controlling when you have the South Node in Virgo. You're learning to let that go. And you need to have more faith and be more flexible and fluid, right? This is Pisces. This is a fish. It's in the water. You have to be fluid and willing to change. So something might spark that kind of debate on Saturday. Also, what you will see Saturday, March 1st, is Venus slowing down to go retrograde. And anytime a planet slows down to go retrograde, the energy is intensified. So, of course, this is Aries, right? So, as I mentioned, it's going to feel a little bit like Mars going retrograde, but Venus rules what we love. Mars rules our passion, our drive, right? It's sexuality. Venus is the softer side. Venus is receptive. And so while it won't feel exactly like a continuation of Mars through Cancer, there'll be a little bit of flavor that seems similar, but I think it'll affect your feelings, your desires, more than your energy level. But we'll see how that starts to unfold for you. But again, you can look back to 2017. That was the last time Venus was in Aries and had this retrograde going on. So there might be themes, there might even be people who pop up to reignite maybe a conversation or a relationship from back then. But you can't pretend that you love something or you love someone whose values are different than your own. It never works. So you can't wear rose-colored glasses and pretend for the next 6 weeks that it will, because that's how long April 12th takes, a 6-week window, right, for this Venus retrograde. You can delude yourself for those 6 weeks, but I guarantee you will pay a high cost as soon as the eclipses happen, as soon as Mercury ends its retrograde, and as soon as Venus ends hers. So if you want to experiment for 6 weeks, okay, but it's not the time to make any kind of big commitments. Then, as we move on here on Sunday, that square that began at the new moon, well, now it's time to make your choice. The sun is what we need to feel success, right? How we want to shine in the world. And according to Jupiter, how you want to shine in the world isn't working, and something has to change. And so there will be conflict on Sunday, as we just passed the Ides of March, I believe, that is big. It could be a bit explosive, right? The ego self does not like being told no. And so Jupiter may be telling you no about something and like trying to hang on to what you were told to let go of during the new moon. And now Jupiter says, it's time. You've had a few days to consider, and now it's time to break free and to make the change. So, as usual, that's very interesting to consider as we look at this pretty impactful week ahead. And that means we'll be, 2 weeks out from a full moon solar eclipse. So this energy is just beginning. And we're going to be full on in it and really seeing it. And then on Sunday, the other thing that we'll see officially is Venus being, of course, in retrograde. Just not shifting and changing the times on Saturday, but I am showing you officially Venus is retrograde. So it's time to go within. It's time to determine what you love, what you're passionate about. And if you love your independence and your freedom, are you willing to fight for it? Because that is what we're going to have to be dealing with for these next 6 weeks, is deciding what we're willing to fight for and what does our independence and our freedom mean to us. And again, go back, look at the work that you were doing in 2017 and what choices did you make back then that you'd wished you'd done differently, or maybe you're getting a second chance and that's a good thing because you want to try and do something differently. All of this, of course, relates to whatever house you have Venus in your chart. And if you don't know that, book a session with me and we'll take a close look at the work that you need to do, which is big. It's important. It's fated. This is where the eclipse is going to happen. So next week, let's move on. What day I want you to pay attention to, if it's even going to show up this week. Yeah, as soon as probably by the weekend, as Venus starts to get closer back into that 9-degree element of energy that she first visited, right? As I was recording this on Thursday, February 20th. Something else, something more is coming up that, again, you may have to completely fight for, right? Whatever, it just depends on what you were fighting for as she first went through here, but there's something more. And now we're also seeing that Mercury is almost conjunct to Venus, and it will move forward to about the point where Venus also slowed down and started her retrograde on, the full moon lunar eclipse. The energy is not going to quit being intense. And that's why you have so much help still in the planets that are in Pisces. And we're also now seeing that Neptune has ticked on to the 29 degrees of Pisces. This is important. It's a critical anaretic degree. We'll talk about this more next week. But what's showing up now is going to become a huge storyline as Neptune will go retrograde here, as Neptune and Saturn will enter Aries together. There's so much that's about to change. So, is it time for things to calm down yet? No. It is time for you to find things that are healthy and a creative outlet for you and helps you remain in faith, right? So, lots more to come. I could probably go on for hours about all this. I might actually do a separate recording because I did the 2025 recording though. So, and the link will still be down below, where I did, a high level preview of how much is shifting and changing and a historical review of what changed the last time these big outer planets changed signs. And no, they all did not change signs in the same year like they are now. So even that comparison is just a glimmer of the potential and the possibilities. So definitely go out there and take a look at that as well. All right, guys. There's lots coming. I almost don't want to stop talking because I want you to feel like you're supported. So know that you are. I will, of course, have all of my daily cards in a positive message. So make sure you're listening to those, whether you just go out to my website and watch them, watch on TikTok or watch on Facebook or watch on Instagram. It doesn't matter where you watch me. The message is mostly the same. And then I do try to make sure they get on the shorts portion of my YouTube channel as well, like this video. So please like, comment, share. Go watch last week's tarot cards. See how these messages are aligning with you and for you and trying to show you the path forward. And let me know how else I can help. All right, guys, have a great week. I will talk with you soon, and definitely keep me posted. All right. Take care, everybody. Be sure and check out your weekly tarot card messages as well. Those, along with this astro lesson, are going to give you the big picture. Thanks again for tuning in. Talk to you next week.